What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cook and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Hey, I need to tell you something.
Oh, God, what is it?
Some time ago, we did an ad episode where we talked about how we were going to get better with our ads.
I was wondering where you were going.
Yeah.
We're so shit at the ads.
That's what we said. We said, we're so shit, we're going to get better, and we just didn't.
We don't. We're so full of shit. All right, well, here they are. We got 5 sponsors currently.
All right, who are they? Read
First
them
is
out.
the OG, the Einzelwiener.
Oh, that knob.
The buffhead.
Yeah.
No, he's the OG. He's been with us
He's
since the
good.
start.
No, he's good.
He
He's
is
good.
going to
He's a
sell
good
you
boy.
whatever you need.
Yep.
He'll get it. What you should do is contact Jason from Einswick Dog Queer with some peculiar product, tell him you want it, and make him get it in and sell
Yeah.
it to you. Even if you could buy it somewhere else, just make sure he gets it in for you.
Just make that bastard work.
But in all honesty, I'd say 90% of my shit comes from him, and it's all the best stuff.
I did see some feedback on our forum where somebody was really intrigued about your handler package, the one that you got from Jason. Obviously, it works. Like,
Yeah, it's
people
good.
are paying attention to the
Yeah, the
ads.
leashes
That's
are good.
great. Even though we're shit at this, we do a terrible job of actually trying to keep things updated. It's great to see that the people who are investing in our show are actually getting some leeway.
Yep. Mate, I've heard that your wife sells some canine products.
My wife is doing great guns at the moment. I said before that she's been supported terrifically in the United States, which has been good, but I will swing that back home and say that so many more people in Australia are doing it. And it's great to see, like, there are people finally in the sporting dog world who are starting to prioritize nutrition for their dogs. And I know them. I can see them when Narelle comes in and says, oh, guess who bought some product off me for the first time. So
Are you saying there's no patient confidentiality?
no, there's
You're
patient
aware-
confidentiality.
Oh, sorry.
It's just a
purchaser
mailing list.
confidentiality.
Well, it's a mailing list.
Are you aware my dog is taking pee, collagen, and what's the other thing he takes?
Antonol.
Antonol.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been on that.
Antonol is not Narelle's business, but I've got to do a shout out for Antonol. They are absolutely fantastic. They're very supportive of our show. Whenever we've done seminars and so forth, they have been first to dip their hand in their pocket. They are very generous with their product. But let me just say, all that aside, their generosity and their advertising and marketing, let me just say on the other side of that, their product is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it does work. It's very beneficial.
For sure.
It's one of those things where they say Antonol for every dog every day. I totally agree with that. Narelle has even supported that. When people have asked them about her product, she says the 2 things that I would absolutely give to you is Antonol and her Gut Protect formula.
Yeah, right.
Gut Protect is like her holy grail of
Like
her
the
whole
flagship
range.
of the range.
This is not me market talking, okay? Because
This is an ad.
This is an ad, but this is not me doing marketing.
But we've already pointed out we're shit at ads.
I know. Of all the things that she sells, and she sells some killer product, but the one thing that she does sell, which I absolutely agree with her, every dog should have this product, is the Gut Protect.
Really?
100%. It's nothing that they need for being sick. It's something that they need to do just to maintain great gut balance.
Okay.
And gut balance is like mental health. It's one of those things that you absolutely want to get control around. So products like Antonol, great for every day. Gut Protect, great for every day. There's other products that aren't even related to hers called Rose Hip Vital and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic for dogs to be on every sort of day. But I know there's other people we need to talk about. If you want to learn more about Narelle's products, go to our website, canineseuticals.com. I think it's
You'll figure it out.
it's .com
Canine
or
Ceuticals.
.com.au. It's one of those.
No one
but-
types that shit anyway. Everyone just Googles it and
Yeah,
then goes,
just Google it.
yeah.
You'll find it.
Hey,
Yeah.
George Kittredge, I reckon we should get him on the show.
We should have George Kittredge on the show.
Yeah.
Not only is he devilishly handsome,
Yep.
but he's got a fantastic, one-of-a-kind product that I've never seen replicated anywhere in the world. You and me were getting a car ride by him. We got to see the prototype firsthand.
And then his bike got stolen with the prototype on it.
did.
Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, George has Rowdy Hound Dog Box. And
Yes.
so it's a crate that goes on the back of your motorbike so that your dog can go everywhere with you. And
Yeah.
it's cool as shit. It's a great idea. You should
Yeah.
totally get one. Tailored Canines in Canada.
Yeah,
Do you know that Taylor from Tailored Canines is hosting Jazz Whiting later in the year?
I do know that. Yes,
Yes.
I saw the ad. Very good.
Yep.
Not
So
only is she doing great stuff with her tailored canine,
her training business.
her training business, but she's also getting a fantastic trainer over there to help with her tailored training.
She is. And finally, Barbara de Groot
The sugar mama from the Heart Dog
From the
Training.
Heart Dog Training.
Just fucking throws cash at us.
Just supports the show. God bless her.
Yeah. I think later on in the year when Narelle and I are over doing a seminar with Melanie Benware, Barbara de Groot is coming over.
Wonderful.
I think she has put down a like, and I said, you better come, sugar mama, and she gave me a thumbs up. So hopefully she's going to be there and I can give her some love to repay us for all the kindness and support that she's thrown at us and ask nothing in return.
All right. That's our ad.
Yeah.
That one's good to go for at least another 4 years. You'll hear from us then. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart. I'm joined in studio today by my co-host, Glenn Cook.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Better than Raygun.
So I think we have to talk about it.
We must talk about it. Well, everyone's talking about it, so why should we be any different?
Yeah, exactly. The problem is we as Australians, two Aussie fellas that we are, have a show,
Yes.
a little radio show that we're doing right now.
Just a little one that plays on the interwebs?
Yeah, and most of our listenership is not in Australia.
Right.
We're mostly Americans.
But they know about it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to confront this breakdancing situation. But I think there's some interesting parallels to dogs.
Do you know a fun fact?
Yeah, I love fun facts.
In 1985, I had a breakdance crew. That's when breakdancing really came into the world.
You're older than me.
Yeah.
Once you're over 20, it doesn't really make any difference how old your friends are. You know, like when you're in school, someone's 6 months older than you, you're like, wow, that motherfucker's 6 months older than me. He's old, right?
Yeah.
And once you're over 20, it's like, oh, who cares?
Who cares, yeah.
Right? And so what am I, 41? And how old are you?
What? You're asking me how old you are? I'm 54.
Okay. So like as two adult men,
Yeah.
who gives a fuck, right? But in 1985, when you were breakdancing, I
would
was
have been
busy being
5.
2 years old.
Oh, you too?
I was 2.
Yeah, I was 15.
Okay.
I was 15 in 1985.
All right. So tell us about your moves. What was your best move?
My best move was the turtle.
Okay.
That's the one where you put your elbows into your sternum, you shuffle around on your hands like you're spinning around.
Okay. You're still front. Your back is up and you're holding on your hand, spinning around.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's why it's called the turtle. Your back legs are sort of curved up in the air.
Yeah.
And you're shuffling around. But the one trick that I was pretty good at, so what a lot of people would do is they would walk around on their hands. But I could do hops on my hands, so I could do pretty significant rotations around. When I was younger, naturally when you're younger, you're a hell of a lot stronger. And I was a hell of a lot lighter too. So it was easy to move my body mass around. It's a lot harder these days. But then, I was probably 70 kilos wringing wet.
Yeah.
Probably even lighter. And we were just training all the time. So if I wasn't training martial arts, I was doing breakdancing.
Okay.
There was a movie called Breakdance that came out of the United States. I saw it with a group of my friends at school and we just went, oh, that's fucking sick. It just became a fad. There was a breakdance school up the road that opened up and it was a couple of guys that were in their early 20s or something like that. And I said to my mum, I wouldn't mind going along and learning from them. And Mum goes, yeah, okay, another fad that you're going to go into and come out of. And I went there and I loved it. Mm-hmm. I really loved it. I really loved the culture. I love the music, Herbie Hancock and all that sort of music. It was a really fucking cool vibe. Mm-hmm. And I met some really cool dudes doing it. As you're talking about people being of different age brackets, I had people in the year below me and people in my year and people in the year above me that were all part of our crew. Mm-hmm. And we had guys and girls in our team as well. So we were one of the first breakdancing crews in our area that had a girl in the team. And then we had a second girl.
How progressive of you.
She was a good dancer. She used to, people do it now. It's called the Charleston, where it's like a step where you do this weaving step as you're moving forward. Mm-hmm. And her parents were dancers and they showed her how to do this move called the Charleston. And we thought, I'd love to learn how to incorporate that into some of the moves. So as I was telling you about before, my mum used to watch us because we would roll out this bit of vinyl in our lounge room. So we'd skittle all the furniture to the side and we'd have the vinyl out and we'd have music banging all the time. And my mum was a good sport, I've got to say, because this was happening 5 days a week. I had 6 to 7 people around in the lounge room all the time. There were kids come and go and there was breakdance music playing all the time.
Okay.
Mum would come in and sit down and watch, and sometimes she'd say, it's driving me crazy. And other times she came in and She was watching us pulling off a routine because we were dancing at a nightclub. So mum came in and said, can I give you a suggestion? And I said, yeah. And she said, when the person is on the floor dancing, the rest of you are just standing around and watching. And I said, yeah, that's how it happens. You stand around in a group, like our crew and the other crew who we're battling will be watching the person dancing. That's what it's called. It's a battle.
I know. I'm just imagining you. But I'm imagining you now. Oh, okay, carry on.
I had another life before you knew me, Pat
Stewart.
Stewart.
Did, I believe you.
So, yeah, Mum came up with this great idea and she said, why don't you all, while you're standing on the sideline, why don't you coordinate like a movement together so it's not just standing there, like you're all running a routine, like dancing in...
Background dancing.
Yeah, background dancing, but synchronized. And then, like break it up where like you do like a chain where you freeze and move along. And I thought, oh, that's actually pretty progressive. Nobody else was doing that either.
How avant-garde of you.
Absolutely. But it was my mum. Even though she fucked me over with the whole supernova thing at school, she really got this right. And that went off a hit. Like people loved that because it was different. It was very progressive. It meant that not only the person moving in the middle and doing their routine was getting some spotlight, but it kind of drew a momentum to the entire crew. So everybody got kudos for like pulling it off. Naturally, when people see that, they want to copy what you're doing and people started copying it. And before you knew it.
So what you're telling me is you invented breakdancing.
Pretty much. I would have to say that I was part of the first movement of breakdancers in Australia.
Okay.
Because it was back in that day.
All right. We've established you as an expert in breakdancing.
So I should get an honorary doctorate in breakdancing.
Well, so you're an expert in breakdancing.
Yes.
I am a man with an opinion and a microphone.
Yep.
And so away we go. We're going to talk breakdancing for the next however long.
Yeah. Do you want to know what my street name was?
I can't believe I didn't ask that already.
Turtle Ruck was my street name.
Because you did the turtle move.
Turtle was my move.
Yeah, but where'd Ruck come from?
It was just street name.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it was just like a street
Gosh,
name.
you've lived a life, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, Turtle Ruck was my street name.
Okay.
And our crew was called the Hot Foot Breakers.
Hot Foot Breakers.
Hot Foot Breakers.
Okay.
We had somebody that graffitied art for us and I probably got a photo of it somewhere I can dig out.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Do it and post
hopefully
it.
I have, yeah, because it was a good time. Like I had some guys like Craig and Gary. I was telling you about young Gary. He was in a year below me and the move where you spin around on your back is not where you do a back spin, but spin around with your legs in the air and rotate from your belly to your back is called the helicopter.
Right.
Gary was trying to do this for ages. And like I said, we were practicing all the time. Like we were doing choreographed dance routines and stuff like that. But none of us were really good at doing the helicopter. It wasn't a special move of mine. But Gary had like a knack of getting it, but he could just never pull it off. And then one day he just fucking pulled it off. And mate, he was sensational. He was like a fucking helicopter when he pulled it off. He was so agile. But he wanted it so bad. Like he never stopped. Like he injured himself. He fucking hurt his wrist. He dislocated his finger trying to do it. But he never fucking, like he just patched himself up.
Yeah.
He's tough as nails. He'd come to training all the time. And this fucking kid pulled it off. He was amazing at doing the helicopter. Like he would embarrass everybody else. He was so good at it at the end. And he would do this movement. Don't get me wrong. There's people in America who are like fucking exceptional at breakdancing. You know, when you watch them, especially some of the people in the black community, like they are fucking killer breakdancers. They were our heroes in the day. Like when you watch some of the black community doing breakdancing, you just think these people are like not just great, they're exceptional at what they do. Mm. But Gary, he pulled this beautiful move off where he'd go into a helicopter and then not putting his arms down, he'd just have his arms in front of him, but then he would spin up into the air on his head and just maintain it. And he could go from his head back into a helicopter, back onto his head and keep spinning. Fucking phenomenal. This kid had fucking skill.
So breakdancing.
Now that we've gone through that.
Yeah, we've established you as an expert.
I never thought I would be telling this story on this
here we
podcast
are.
up until old Raygun.
So breakdancing was included at the Olympics this year in Paris. And for anybody that lives under a rock, I think there were only 16 countries that put in entries.
Yes.
We were one of them.
Yeah.
We had a lady, Rachael Gunn, that was our person.
Representative.
Our breaker.
Yep.
She was dog shit. She did a fucking terrible job.
Oh, it's disgraceful.
Just did a bunch of dumb shit. She did what are known in Australia as like classic drunken pub moves. right? Like the windmill, the kangaroo hop. These are the sorts of things that you'll see at a pub at 3 a.m. while there's a shitty cover band playing and people are drunk as hell gyrating around on the floor, right?
Yeah, but people do that as comedy. It's
That's
kind
right.
of like
It's a piss
making,
take.
yeah, it's making your friends
It's a
laugh
piss
by
take.
doing that sort of shit.
I was in that situation one time.
Yeah.
I was that level of intoxication in a country pub
Yep.
near an army base in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And there was a guy I was with, I won't say his name because he's still in, and he was dancing, right? And I was like, geez, man, I didn't know you could dance. And he goes, dude, you just do drills. And he goes, look, this is the 66. So like a 66 is a shoulder-mounted disposable rocket that you fire. Like when you're learning to use one, there's a very strict procedure that you have to go through. Here's a fun fact. Well, since we're talking about a bunch of stuff that's not dog training, you know, like an RPG, like a shoulder mounted type rocket,
Yep.
that has what's called a BBDA, right? A back blast danger area. So like whenever you're going to fire something like that, you have to be careful there's nothing behind you or you'll eviscerate it. Or if there is something behind you like a wall, the blast will hit the wall and break you in half. Like I know a guy who broke his back from doing exactly that.
Holy shit.
He fired not a 66, it was an 84, a bigger one, in front of an armored vehicle. The blast hit the armored vehicle and went back and hit him, broke his back.
Well,
right?
that energy's got to go somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's all these procedures around firing one, and he used to do those procedures, right?
Oh,
So
nice.
like as you pick up the 66, you have to open the container because it's in a 2-stage thing, and then you have to make sure that the rocket, the warhead hasn't gone loose, so you have to tilt it back and forth, and then you have to check behind. Like there's this whole thing, and he would just do these moves, and he would throw grenades and shit on the dance floor, doing the whole procedure of throwing grenades and just build it into these dances. And so that's the kind of dumb shit that Australians do when they're drunk. You do the windmill, you do the sprinkler, you pretend you're the lawn sprinkler, and that sort of dumb shit, okay? So that's what this chick did at the Olympics. This is what happened to us. She just did a bunch of stupid moves and it caused a lot of questions, right? What has happened, certainly online, on Instagram, on social media, you look through the reels and it's a bunch of people taking the piss out of this chick.
Yeah.
But when I look at my Facebook, my Facebook, I've got thousands of friends with inverted commas, but they're people who are dog community people who, for whatever reason, and they're like, what the fuck, right? They're outside of Australia. And what's happened is that the assumption is that Australians can't breakdance, that there is no breakdancing in Australia. And then we had the head of our Olympic team, who must be friends with the lady, saying that she's the best breakdancer in Australia. That's it. She qualified. She is chosen as our best breakdancer, and she did a wonderful job. And just backed her to the hilt, which I have to say, I was super impressed by the way that she could just bald-faced lie like that. Look like
Yeah, but I'm not impressed by that. Like that sort of stuff is highly unremarkable.
Yeah.
As I know, and I've watched before, and I've even watched people in the street when I've walked through Sydney and parts of Melbourne and so forth, and I've stopped to watch kids breakdancing. And I thought, oh, you fucking skilled little mofos.
Yeah.
Like watching these groups of people with incredible talent, like they're really whipping it up and they're whipping the crowd up and they're doing an incredible job, you know, like, and breakdancing now and just the talent of people and I think even the physical prowess of people has improved significantly. You know, it's a generational thing. Every 10 years, people seem to get smarter and fitter. Gym culture is more prevalent now than what it ever used to be. You know, people's desire to want to get fit and work out, it's much more
There's a lot of
prolific.
good science on that now. People know how to
They do.
be efficient with that
They
shit.
know how to do the proper workouts. They know how to do proper diet and nutrition, the entire platform. My reason for saying all that is when I watch younger people doing it or people just getting into it, their aerial acrobatics and their gymnastic skills combined with their breakdancing is phenomenal. Like it's much better than what we used to do back in the day. But what we were doing was cutting edge then because it was just emerging into the country and we were learning off VHS. That was our coach because, we didn't really have super mentors coming out from the States and showing us how to doing it. We were just learning off VHS and learning and watching and learning and watching. These days, people are traveling, they're going around. You've got people coming into the country, people leaving the country and coming back and passing on those memorable skills. And it's just fucking incredible. So for people to now be under the impression that there's no good breakdancers in Australia, that's a real bummer.
Yeah.
That's a really sad thing to do. The other thing which I quickly want to say on this while I'm on a momentum of disgust over it, the amount of social justice warriors that they're saying, oh, she gave it a go. Now,
The Olympics is not where you give it a go.
That's exactly right. And that's a significant point. Like, you don't go to a pinnacle sport to give it a go when there seems that there is also like an incredibly distasteful backstory built around it, allegedly.
Yes. One thing on the give it a go. I promise we're coming to dogs.
Yeah,
we're gonna draw a parallel.
We have to spiral down into
We're going to draw a parallel eventually.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I thought would be fun at the Olympics, and certainly I didn't come up with this, someone else said it, is what they should do is just have a random person in the events as well. So like from the crowd, they're like, all right, Glenn, 100 meters sprint. We're going to see how you go against Usain Bolt. Because when they're all running it in 9 seconds, they, the difference between the 9 second and the 9.2, no big deal, right? But when you like jog it in 15, we get to see like, oh, okay, these guys are super fast. And there was some people kind of laughing about, well, maybe that's what happened in the breakdancing, right? This is a person who didn't know what it was. And it for sure looked like that. Like it was like, oh, it's your first time.
When I first saw it, the very, very first time I saw that reel being shown to me, I thought that was just her having a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
Like, being up on the stage and just doing a bit of a skit routine or something like that. And then everyone goes, oh no, this is the real thing. Like that was her competitive move.
Yeah.
The word cringe was used a lot, and I think that's super appropriate. It was cringy.
The first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah.
Right? Like I was like, what is happening? So the information's starting to come out now. And in fact, I've seen what I'm about to explain. Other people start talking about this, but I became obsessed with it, to be honest. I was like, why did this happen? Like, how did this come to be? Because this isn't that we've just let a random person have a go. And just to sort of draw the comparison between what a real person and what a random person would be. But then when people start saying she's the best breakdancer in Australia, right? She was selected and she's the best breakdancer in Australia, and people backing her. I was like, no, like I for sure know that's not the case. Like my wife went to a performing arts school. I'm no breakdancer, right? I've probably gotten drunk and tried to spin on my head, like for sure. I won't deny that.
No, I'm not just some guy.
I won't deny having done that. However, like I've seen incredible breakdancing here in Australia.
Yeah.
And there is a culture of breakdancing here.
Amazing.
We went and saw years ago, me and Jane went and saw Flying Buck, which is where they had a whole breakdancing crew. It was like done by Red Bull. And we paid, a couple $100 and we're in a theater of thousands of people.
And they're incredible.
Yeah. So it's not like breakdancing is this weird, peculiar thing here. It's a thing. It's the same as it is everywhere else. There's loads of people doing breakdancing. There's some fucking incredible people doing
Incredible talent.
Yeah.
And like I said, it progressively got better as people became more agile and fitter and more gymnastic minded.
Yeah. So we went and saw years ago Flying Buck. It's breakdancing to classical music and really incredible, right? So anyway, I was like, no, this isn't our best breakdancer. How did this come to be? Like, I have to figure this out. And it's starting to come out now, and I want to be careful so that we don't get sued. I'm just a dickhead. I don't have any real information. Don't take anything I say as the gospel, but here's what seems to have happened.
So we're going to say the word allegedly.
Allegedly, right?
Yes.
So, they've decided, okay, breakdancing is going to be in the Olympics at Paris. The Australian Olympic Committee is then in charge of, okay, well, how the fuck do we organise breakdancers, right? We don't know anything about this. How do we do it? So they went to this organisation. I can't remember the name of it, but let's just put like a placeholder of that, of like the Australian Sporting Dancers Association, right? Now, that might not be the exact name of it. I can't remember. But they're the sort of biggest governing body in competitive dancing in Australia. But then, for the most part, a ballroom dancing organisation. And there was ballroom dancing in the Olympics a while ago. And so the Olympic Committee has a relationship with these people as to being like, hey, you guys are sort of our point of contact for dancing. What do we do about finding breakdancers? And they say, well, we don't know because that's not our thing. But there is an organisation, the Australian Breakdancing Organisation, that we can, like, through us, you can contact them. But guess who's the president of the Australian Breakdancing Organisation? Rachael Raygun.
Who else? Who else?
And so they were then put in charge of selecting people. What it seems like is that this self-appointed head organisation of breakdancing in Australia, which, mind you, she has a PhD in breakdancing. Her degree is in like social sciences, and she did her PhD in the cultural impact of breakdancing.
Yeah. And that's been flouted all over news media for the last week.
Which, if you're going to do like a degree in social sciences and go for a doctorate or something, get a PhD, like fucking cool, right? Like, way to go. So what it appears is that she's a mad enthusiast of breakdancing. And there's video of her doing breakdancing where she's not dog shit, right? Like she can out breakdance me for sure, right? Like she's capable of doing real breakdancing, not at a world level, but she's a breakdancer, right? Like she's into it.
Mate, even at the height of my career, when I was training all the time, if you turned around to me and said, I want you to represent Australia in the Olympics, I would have said no way.
Yeah.
As good as I felt we were, I knew what street crews in America were doing even back in the 1980s that would have wiped us to the floor with us because they were just fucking amazing. That was the birthplace of expressive dance. I would probably say it was in the black communities and the Latin American communities, that sort of very expressive sort of dance, and it developed around that area. But they were the kings and queens of that. Like they were incredible. Mate, we wouldn't have been a silver medalist or a bronze medalist against them. They would have taken all three fucking categories of those medals because they were just incredibly talented people.
So this breakdancing organization get put in charge of, hold trials. And so apparently at the trials, 15 people were there. And the judge, old Raygun's husband, selected her as the winner.
It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, but so this is the thing. Like, it wasn't widely publicized. They didn't let people know, like real breakdancers who would be killing themselves to have the opportunity to compete at the Olympics and potentially could have done well because, as we've discussed, you pioneered breakdancing in Australia. You paved the way for all these young kids to have a go now. But
have a go. That word is going to haunt some people in Australia.
Yeah.
Have a go.
But it was kept from them that the availability to do this. And just suddenly there's breakdancing at the Olympics and all these people who are like mad keen breakdancers and are keen on being there have been shafted by an enthusiast who has done the work to get what is like a qualification and set up an organization in a way that's not supported by the community. Now, here's the parallel to dogs. This feels a lot like what we see when someone with a PhD or a doctor, a veterinary behavioralist doctor, starts telling us what is and isn't dog training and starts saying that what their opinion on dog training is the be all and end all of dog training.
Indeed.
But has not trained a fucking dog, right? Or the standard to which they've trained a dog would be that somebody would look at it and go like, oh yeah, you've trained a dog. In the same way, we look at her trials and go, oh yeah, you can breakdance, right? Like that is breakdancing. It's not good breakdancing, but it's breakdancing. This is what we see all the time. These are the people haunting us. And this is the state that the world has gotten into, whereby being in the right committees, getting the right ticks of approval from the university institutes and being in those right cliques and withholding information about things that's going on from the people on the tools, spinning around on their heads and actually training dogs, right? The opportunities to be showcased for the experts that they are, but have not received any like acclaim as an expert. Like I, as a dog trainer, have zero fucking qualifications as a dog trainer. All right. Now, this is one of the things that is people get big mad. And when I see it in forums, people talk about like, make sure you get a fully qualified dog trainer. Like, and for sure, there's courses that I support. We have here in Australia, like real courses, you can get real quals. But that doesn't mean that you're fucking competent and good to go. That doesn't mean that.
There's plenty of people with degrees and PhDs that went on to flip burgers.
And having that qualification doesn't mean that you are skilled and competent. And the absence of that qualification doesn't mean that you are not skilled and that you are not competent. And that, I think, is what we've seen in a lot of our space. And this is, in my opinion, for anybody that's still listening about our breakdancing intro, is what we're seeing a lot of that is sort of taking over the world, in that it's like, no, you're not recognized because you're not in the clique of the people who have decided that we're in charge. We don't do it. We don't do the thing that you do, but we've decided we're in charge of you. We don't understand what you do. We couldn't do that if our fucking lives depended on it, but we've decided we're in charge of you and we're going to represent you and we're going to decide how you're able to do your job and we're going to present ourselves as the best in the world. And when someone questions your concerns over my opinions, well, I've got a fucking PhD, so fuck you and you've got no quals. I'm aware of people saying they have masters in dog training and that they studied in India street dogs that are fucking bullshit artists that don't have any qualifications in said training.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They have fabricated credentials in various different arenas and they're giving out pro-level advice.
Yeah.
You're exactly right with what you said. It is frightening, disturbing and concerning that these very people are walking amongst us with this view of elitism. And the other concern that I have, and which I've spoken openly about, is there are some incredible scientists out there who are going to change the world for the better. They have real integrity. They really want to do good by everybody. These are the people who don't have loyalty and ethics or integrity tattooed on them. They actually live by that code. They have it. They want to change the world. They know that things need to improve and they want to be part of that movement. And there's other people who are just sellout scientists. They will just literally take the cash and they will publish what their new master has told them to put out. And that will be the published said science of whoever that may be. Narelle and I were working in her office the other day. We were just doing something for her business and she was listening to a few people, one of them being Dr. Conor O'Brady, who's an Irish...
Conor O'Brady being Irish, I don't believe you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no way.
Yeah, Dr. Conor O'Brady, when Narelle and I go over to the United States in October, he's going to be at some of the speaking events we're going to. Narelle's been chatting with him. He's a very, very influential an incredible speaker. He's also very knowledgeable in the material that he's actually putting out, but he's also a whistleblower. Like he is literally exposing, I think he's a vet. He's exposing some of the unethical people in the industry who are literally just taking the cash and publishing the information. But as we have said before, he also points out that these people aren't bad people. They're not knowingly bad people. They're just being conditioned to believe that that's right, that that is the gospel that they're preaching and they're speaking the good word. There are evil people out there. There's no two ways about it. There are fucking evil people out there who they'll burn the whole village just to fucking catch one man because that's how they live their life. They just don't care. Their moral compass spins in all directions. They don't really have one. But there are other people who are simply just conditioned by life to believe that the people that put them through school or helped them along their way or even set up their practice or did something for them in some capacity, they owe a debt of gratitude to and they swing in their favor. We have to be of the understanding that there is still sellout science out there. Just because people say it's science, whose science is it? Is it peer-reviewed by a team of your peers? If it's irrefutable and people out there are putting out great work and your peers are looking at it and they're saying, this is incredible work, like this is life-changing, this is going to give us evolution in this space, as opposed to, what's this fucking dog shit? It's a matter of theory that people are speaking angrily about and they're very defensive about it, but they hold the line on it no matter what, at great cost to everybody else. And this debate is coming up. At some stage, I think we really need to start talking about this electric collar issue that's been surfacing again, and there's some Asian countries now that are under fire.
Yeah, you've got special information on that I had no idea about.
Look, I don't want to say too much about it right now. I think maybe we should get some people on and have a bit of a chat about this. I've been publishing some studies that were done back in 2014, the PLOS One studies, which is the Public Library of Online Sciences. They did a comparison of remote trainers or e-collars or shock collars, as people like to call them, against the effect of positive training. Since then, there has been a couple of additional studies that have been done. It's not something that I think in 5 minutes we could cover off. It's quite long and lengthy, and I feel that there are probably a lot of other people that I'd like to weigh into that conversation. We've started to go down that way on the forum. Those of you who are involved in the discussion forum, it's worth having a look at. And I would value your opinion. Like if you've got any insight to the study, please jump on there. Or if you know of anything else, add some weight to it. And when I publish these things, it's not, I don't believe anybody has done. It's not to curry favor with us or the community and just speak in the direction that we're talking in, because this is what I'm speaking out against. If I'm putting something up, what I want you to do is refute it. I want you to tell me, no, this is right, you're wrong. That's what I want to know. That's what I value in real science. Like when I'm talking about people who want to change the world for the better, I want to make sure that this is not somebody who's delusional about what they're producing and is not just taking the paycheck and giving us a narrative that sits well with them because it sits well with their bank account or it sits well with the new company that they're working for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm very much afraid of with these sciences because, like I said before, and as I've spoken out avidly against, I believe that we went through one of the most hysterical social sciences in the last couple of years. Like, we're still going through it now and we're still on the blowback of what's going on there and information that's popping up on that all the time for people who care to listen about it.
Yeah. I think that's the big issue sort of culturally, whether we're talking breakdancing or dogs, is that I'm sick of being gaslit. I'm sick of being people lying to me and expecting me just to gobble up your fucking bullshit. That study, that PLOS One study, and like that surfacing, like, can we talk about why that's coming out now, like with what's happening in Singapore? Is that like, can we talk about?
Well, yeah, look.
Do we need more detail on that? I didn't know that training in Singapore is so restricted already.
There are breeds that are considered restricted breeds, such as Rotties, Mals, Shepherds, etc. So these dogs are considered, I believe, as a, let me get the term for everybody just so I'm making sure I'm speaking with some accuracy. So I've been speaking with a group of colleagues over in Singapore because there is definitely some concerns going on there. The usual crew of people, such as the welfare agencies and the force-free trainers, have now decided that they want the Singapore government to consider removing remote trainers, training tools, etc., like they're doing in every other location. Yep. In addition to that, I asked my colleague over there, have they got a PSA club or anything? Their comeback is, unfortunately, in Singapore, breeds like German Shepherds, Rotties, Malinois, Dobermans are considered scheduled breeds and they have to be muzzled out in public. We're starting to see the world shift into this paradigm that was painted to me in a bleak Orwellian discussion that I had with my training colleague. It was actually Alec Jones. Alec Jones told me this some time ago. He said, if we're not careful, if we don't stay together and if we don't build allies in this and start representing ourselves, he said, it won't be long before we start seeing it that the only time that you'll be able to see dogs like we have now is in a zoo or where it's out of our hands. I still remember to this day laughing in Alex's face, like thinking, you twit. That is such an outrageous comment to make. But like I said, it's like evolution. If you are able to actually see the mutation in time, like you can actually bear witness to it, you can physically see it taking place in front of you. This is something that actually is a true evolution. Like, I've got to watch this play out. Other people who've been in the industry, you're seeing snippets of it now. The longer you're in it, the more you start to see the evolution coming true, where you're starting to see one thing being taken, another thing being taken, one more thing being taken. It is truly the definition of death by 1,000 cuts. You know, I listen to this, and again, it's one of those comments where I say, I hear the words coming out of my mouth. I hear how negative it sounds. It's not to try and bring this into a depressive spiral. What I'm trying to encourage people to do, the call to action here is, I really think that more than ever, we do need to stand together. We need to stop being cowards. We need to call people out who are talking shit in our community. As you said before, you're getting sick of being gaslit. You're getting sick of people building this narrative around it, but nobody's calling them out. Calling people out who are talking shit these days, people are so fucking scared of being cancelled that they fucking hide in their armchairs. I think that you and me and a few other people like Ivan and so forth are some of the last people to be holding this line for.
Yeah, but we don't really name people or anything. Like, that's the tricky line to walk down, right?
That's true.
I'm happily shitting on the fucking breakdancer, but
the world is.
Yeah, that's right? But it's because that's like in the zeitgeist. That's not someone in our industry that we're putting out and going, no, this person's a liar and they're a fraud.
Yep.
And I think that's part of the issue is like, we did an episode a little while ago about like trainers calling out other trainers online and like doing critiques of their videos and shit. So not like, look at this heinous shit that's happening here. Like, at the moment there's a whole thing going on with some dickhead that had his mail tied up and let his
Larry destroyed him online.
Yeah. Right. So like, cool.
Yeah. He deserved.
Like, go mental about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That 100%. But what we're seeing as well is the opposite, which is what we discussed a little while ago, of people doing like reaction videos to the way that other people are training dogs in their outwards facing social media stuff. Not like a video that got leaked or someone found out something that they didn't want known. It's people doing reaction videos to their actual training videos. And it's just like petty shit, right? Rather than looking at the bigger picture of people and going like, no, you're abusive. We've got it in extremes of like, no, that's not training, that's abuse. Or there's people who are like telling us what's what. We're like, no, you're a fraud. You don't have the qualifications that you claim that you have. And you are not competent in training your dog, as demonstrated by the way that you're handling the dog that you're handling, right? And like that's the fine line that is tricky to walk, because if you start calling those people out, then before too long there's a target on you, which is fine if you've got nothing to hide. But then like you get stuck as being that person, right? Like you're the one that's doing those things. And like, where does it end? That's a big issue with it. But my concern with a lot of the things that we're facing, and again, this is what triggered me with the whole breakdancing thing, is that what we see in the social media space and in the real media space and all of that, right? It's not representative of what the average person is doing day to day. It's crushing their future. So again, let me sort of, the breakdancing, that woman has damaged the careers, the potential careers of potential breakdancers in Australia.
Well, allegedly, they're saying that they're going to remove it from Olympics going forward.
But that was happening beforehand. It was just, yeah, but it was only going to be at this Olympics. But what's happened is that for people who are kind of peripherally aware of what's going on in the world, right? Like, because who the fuck's got time to, like, I, for some reason, got obsessed with it and went down the rabbit hole. But for the average person, just looks at this and goes, Australians can't breakdance. There's no culture of breakdancing in Australia. Therefore, they don't know what they're doing. Therefore, like, I write that off in my mind. Like, they've developed a bias in their mind now that Australians can't breakdance. But what has to happen now is there's kids, teenagers, whose fucking dream it is to get into some, like, whatever the upper echelon of breakdancing is. And they're waiting for their shot, and they're going to the things, and they're competing at the things, and they're going to these and that to maybe make it to be in a crew that does a thing professionally. They're not going to be able to now, because there's this bias in the sphere that Australia has no breakdancing community, and there's no breakdance in Australia because we saw the best that you have to offer, and it's some lady flapping around on the floor, right? So that is going to have long and lasting effect on the way that young up-and-coming breakdancers in Australia and the opportunities they're going to get, right?
But it's not only that. It goes deeper beyond that. Some of the kids that need those expressive arts, like, they need it to keep them off the streets.
Yeah.
And there's an old saying that says, idle hands are the devil's tools.
Yeah.
Even for me, like, I needed that. I was a tormented kid when I was younger. Like, I needed those expressive arts. I needed to do the martial arts, and I needed to do the things like breakdancing because it kept my mind off the things that were troubling me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have been a villain in somebody's story because idle hands are the devil's tools. That kept me occupied. That kept me interested. Like, I was in flow state when I was with my little crew of people. Like, we were proactive. We were doing good things, and we were expressing ourselves. And that's a great thing about some of these dance moves and so forth. And the shame about it, of taking it away from the Olympics, is breakdancing and some of those skilled dancings are extremely expressive.
Yeah.
And people who are struggling with mental health, they find that it's a very good outlet for them just to be able to get out on the floor. And with some of that expressive dance, after I finished my stint in breakdancing, I went on to be involved in the rave scene for a very long time in Melbourne. And when I was involved in that, like, anything goes at a rave. You can express yourself anyway. Like, there were people there that were doing breakdancing moves. There were people there that were doing the Melbourne Shuffle. There were people there that were just wailing around like Raygun. They were moving and contorting, or just standing on the floor, letting their body move in any way. People loved it. It was just a nice way to express yourself, to get out and move and to be fit and to be free and do all those sort of stuff. That's fantastic. But nobody was taking somebody's opportunity for Olympic gold and representing their country at the same time, and then having some hypocrite saying, oh, they were having a go.
Yeah. So we're not a breakdancing show, but
No, we're not.
The parallel is that what we have is a bunch of people telling, oh, I've got a PhD in this, or I've decided I'm an important person, and I am telling the world that dogs can't be trained using
remote trainers.
Yeah, they can't do that. And so that the people who don't have a voice and don't have means by which to rebuttal at the level that these people are doing it, are creating this false information, this false narrative, and pushing that down to the zeitgeist of people who are looking for a dog trainer. what we're facing is that then makes it harder and harder for the average balance trainer to be able to participate in the training of dogs in the community, which results in the lower standard of dog training in the community. So there's like this direct parallel. I see it as a straight line. This is what's happening around much of the world, is this fucking gaslighting, this absolute lying by people who have just decided like, no, I'm an expert in this. I've reinvented myself. I did a bunch of study and got a PhD from people who have this strong bias, and I'm going to start telling you what's what about the way that you do your day-to-day job, though I have not done that job. I have studied what it is to do that job, but I have not done it, right? So like I don't have any hands-on skills, but I'm going to tell you, the hands-on person, what you are and are not allowed to do, and whether I have power to actually stop you or not. I'm going to poison the psyche of people who would employ you so that they won't employ you. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing tons of that all around the world. We're seeing it in breakdancing. What's happened to that? That's the very obvious, and we can
shone a light on it.
Yeah, but this is happening in our industry like really heavily.
It's been happening for a long time in our industry.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just accelerated. And I think social media really helped it accelerate. I think what we're seeing and what's troubling most of us is the emotional spin that's been attached to it. When we talk about it as villainy from our point of view, they're really painting it from villainous actions on the other side. Even when you look at some of these studies, and I'm not saying that the people who did some of these studies are corrupt. They might have just done the best with what they could. But when you see the reactions of people who understand what it is to put a scientific study together, and our scientists themselves have also looked at it from a very objectional point of view, they've said sometimes the criteria just doesn't match up to real world. Like it seems that it was science in a bubble where it was created very artificial.
That's exactly the case like with that e-collar study you're talking about, the PLOS One study.
Yeah.
The behavior that was taught is a recall, right? But I don't understand how you could have a group of dogs that are taught to recall with an e-collar, a group that are not, and then they had a control group of people who wanted to do it completely differently, right? Like their group C was the total force-free people, but they were the control group. They were not measured for efficacy. They were like the measure of what a dog should look like, allegedly, when it's happy.
And they were measuring very heavily off cortisol levels too.
Yeah, but the cortisol levels remain the same in the study. The determination that the e-collar shouldn't be used and that it poses more risk than reward was that they said that the training outcomes were similar, but it was stress signals like yawning and lip licking from the dog was the reason. Like, so it was behavioral, like that they observed in the dog is the reason why that they decided the e-collar wasn't the way to go.
Well, but allegedly too, in one of the other studies, or it may have even been that one, allegedly, some of the pairing principles of the e-collar in one of the first rounds, like the preliminary rounds, weren't done to satisfaction. Like they were done too high.
But that's my point. How did they use that e-collar? Because I don't know how you could possibly use an e-collar in the way that I would use an e-collar if someone asked me to help teach their dog a recall. The e-collar is not a tool I'm going to until I get to the point where I'm like, the dog's not coming back. Like we've done all the positive reinforcement stuff, but there is some level of draw out there because the dog has such high prey drive or it's in the presence of something, like there has to be a reason.
Exactly right.
Like you don't start with the e-collar.
Exactly right.
So, and no one does. So I don't understand how this study could have been done. Like I don't get how you could draw the conclusion that it's no more with modern balanced training techniques. How can you possibly draw the conclusion that the e-collar is no more efficacious, like effective than just using positive reinforcement when the only step that you would go to is when you get to the point where if the positive reinforcement's not working, it's time to use some negative reinforcement or some punishment, like depending on the reason why the dog is not coming back, right? So my dog will happily come back under 99% of circumstances. I can send my dog to bite someone downfield, blow the whistle, and he doesn't bite them. Instead, he comes running back to me. Like I can do those things. And for the most part, I can train that using mostly positive reinforcement. But it eventually gets to the point where the dog gets to the thing of like, no, there is higher value here. And your reward history, like all of the things that we tick the box on, like differential reinforcement, all of that doesn't always work. And especially in a circumstance where the thing that the dog is doing downfield and the reason it won't come back is something that you're going to allow the dog to do in the future. So this is what pisses me off, right? This is what so few people understand. And this idea that the training with compulsion and tools and whether it's e-collar, prong collar, whatever, is bad for the dog is that, okay, let's paint the scenario and let's say the dog is reactive to other dogs, right? And so you need to be able to call it back and you want it to come back to you 100% effectively and you want to use nothing but positive reinforcement. Cool. But you're not going to fix that dog reactivity issue. So perhaps using nothing but differential reinforcement, you can reinforce the dog coming back to you or doing an alternate behavior in the presence of the stimulus that it would draw the dog towards. You can perhaps get that dog to recall to you or to display another behavior if you put enough reinforcement weight into doing those things. You probably can do that.
But you're delaying the other behavior of being aggressive.
Well, and the dog never gets to go and be with those other dogs ever again because the process of getting to do that fucks up your whole system of differential reinforcement. And so you are radically altering the life that that dog can live. We know this because when people try and tell me this shit about like, every now and again, you get some force-free trainer that thinks that they know about protection sports, right? And I'll tell you how you should be training it better than me. And it's like, yeah, okay, mate, no worries, right?
Yep.
And it's like, you've got to put more reinforcement history into the alternate behavior. Okay, no worries, right? So when my dog wants to bite the decoy and I need him to hold it down instead of biting the decoy, no worries, right? And you can do that with nothing but positive reinforcement because the down should be, you can make higher value. Yeah, okay, except I also need him to bite the decoy when I say. So then all of that reinforcement history, like you can put as much reinforcement history into the down as you want. If the highest reinforcing thing the dog can think of is biting the fucking decoy, I can do 10 billion fucking reps of putting the dog in a down. The moment he bites the decoy, those reps count for nothing.
Yeah, you've gone back to zero.
Yeah, because that differential reinforcement of the other behavior only works when you don't get to do the problem behavior, right?
Yep.
And when you're going to let the dog do the problem behavior, because it's not always a problem behavior, it only is to you under certain circumstances, then every time it gets to do that, it completely fucks up and derails your entire training thing. Now, you and I, this is like, oh yeah, this is week one, day one information, Pat.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday.
Like if you're a dog trainer and you don't know that, you're not a dog trainer. So that is the time where you go to the dog like, hey man, I know that you want to do that and I want you to do that. Fuck yeah, that's a cool thing, but you can't do it right now, right? And I'm going to pay you for doing this alternate thing, but if you go after that thing, then I'm going to stop you, right? And I'm going to use whatever tool is necessary. If that's the prong to bring you back or if that's the electrics, whatever, I'm going to use some negative reinforcement away from that thing. Or if you do it without my permission, it's something that is on command, I've got really nice, I'll punish you for trying to do it without my permission because you're only allowed to do that when I tell you to do it. So when people say like, oh, well, I can teach a dog 100% reliable recall with nothing but positive reinforcement, you're like, cool. So can most people training most dogs. Like that is actually a very easy thing to do so long as that dog doesn't have big feelings about anything, right? And the moment that dog has big feelings about things, now you've got to deal with that situation. So that dog that is reactive, you can't fix that reactivity if you're just teaching it an alternate behavior. You haven't, you're masking it, you're managing it, but that dog is never going to get to play with other dogs. In that circumstance, you're always going to be worried about it. You're always going to be managing that for the rest of your life. Whereas I and you and so can thousands of other people can go, hey man, don't do that, right? Here, have a ton of freedom. You can get yourself into situations that I can then tell you, don't do that. And now when I tell you to come back, you will, because that's on the table and you can have so much more freedom. And the life of the dog is infinitely better because the dog gets to do the things that if I don't convince the dog not to do it, i.e. punish it or negatively reinforce it away from that thing, I can never put the dog in that situation in case he has too big of feelings again. And that's the thing that really drives me mental about this kind of thing is that we get told that that's unnecessary, that the study says that it's no more efficient or better or it doesn't work any better using e-collar. And it's like, okay, sure. But can we find a situation where it fails and then we would implement the e-collar? So where your positive reinforcement recall stops working, Because with some dogs, that's the case. Now, with some dogs, that'll never happen. If you've got a hungry dog and you're good at the food delivery, or you're good at playing with the dog and you're good at the toys, and you're the highest value thing in the environment, you've got a recall all the time forever, and it's never going to be an issue for you. But if you don't have that, and that's rare, that you can captivate the dog in a way where you are and have the thing that the dog wants the most, and therefore you can open the window of, hey, you can have this thing with me, come back, and that works 100% of the time. For a lot of people, cool, like that's fine. But for people who put their dogs in situations where that's not the case, or they have that kind of dog, then that's not going to work for them. And that's the time to bring in the e-collar, not at the like, oh, we're teaching him to recall, let's use the e-collar straight away. Like, that's not how it works. That's not how trainers do it, right? You do the positive part, and then if you need it, you do the next bit. So I don't understand how you could have a study that just divides the dogs in half and go, well, these ones we're going to teach it with the e-collar and these ones we're not, and say that was the same amount of efficacy. You're like, no, but did we put them all in the same situations? Did we push it, or did we just keep it easy? Because if you...
And what was the skill set of the trainers who did the training? Like, were you invited to do it? Was Bart? Was Ivan?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, were any of the...
No one I've ever heard of gets... The only study I know of where a highly skilled trainer got to be the handler of the e-collar was Hans Ebers. They proved that the e-collar was the best tool when they actually put it in the hands.
Signals with...
Esther Schalk's study.
Yeah, it was Segreali's study and Schalk.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But they had real dog trainers actually do the handling of the dogs.
Yeah, proficient people who had good timing. The other interesting point about this, and I think one of the things that swings me on this consistently, is we're building a narrative around people who make training dogs a secondary project in their life, like second to their family and their work criteria. Like, we're building out people who actually are obsessed about training. What about the average person who doesn't have this capability?
Yeah.
Like, their family, their working life, whatever is going on around them. Like, they have a dog and they love the dog. Don't get me wrong, the dog is an integral part of their family, but they don't have this project management time committed that we commit to our dogs. They can't do it. They can't do it. Like, people that I've spoken to who have had problematic dogs, and that's been on the rise lately. For some reason, there's been a considerable amount of dogs that are coming out of the woodwork at the moment with some significant counsel issues. Now, when I'm talking to them and we're doing the consult together, it's not just about training their dog. It's like and again, please hear me out, I'm not a psychologist, but it's like a psychology session, because I'm sitting down and I'm talking to them. I'm saying, I don't want to be invasive and you don't have to answer anything you don't want to, but I want to know about you and your lifestyle. Like, you need to tell me, do you want to keep this dog? Are we fighting for this dog, or did you come to me to get permission to get rid of the dog? First and foremost, answer that question for me. I said, most of the people, oh no, I want the dog, love the dog, but it's just this one thing. Have you had trainer history before? Yeah, I've been to trainers before, we've done this, we've done that. Show me what your dog can do. One of the first things I noticed all the time is this dog has little to no obedience, and especially in recalling. Now, that shed that we've got out there, I'm not just getting the dog in there and whacking it through its paces straight away. Like, I'm letting them walk the room. I'm letting them walk around the area. I'm giving them as much time as they need to have a cool down with the dog. So the dog comes in, gets used to the environment, gets comfortable. I can see that the dog is in presence, like it's settled. And I know dogs. I've been around them for a long time. It's my life.
You know, dogs and breakdancing.
And breakdancing. After that process has taken place, I say to them, all right, show me what your dog can do. Take treats, do whatever you need to do, take your time. There's no rush. There's no sand running through the hourglass. Do what you need to do. Just show me what you can do with your dog. They'll do some cute spins. They'll do some hand touching, some little boops on the nose and so forth. Lovely. It's cute. Now let's get down to the important stuff. Take your dog off lead. Let your dog walk around the room. You go and walk in the other direction. Take treats, take whatever you want to do, anything that you need to do, get your dog to come back to you. Majority of people can't do it. They just can't do it. Even in an area that I consider my Skinner box of training, because it's void of a lot of distractions. Yes, it's a new area to the dog. Even though the dog's had a warm-up, even though the dog's got the sniffer every corner of that room, and we're half an hour into an hour or hour and a half time together, that dog still won't come back to them. It'll do a partial callback, then it will walk away from them, and that is the majority of the dogs. When you draw down on that further and you ask the client, tell me about your reinforcement history with the dog, tell me about your training history, they don't even understand what that means. So that means that they really haven't spent much time with the dog at all. Then you get people that when you do talk about tool usage, bringing out a prong collar or a remote trainer, they start using this sickening defensive gaslighting phrases like, oh, you're just pulling out a quick fix.
Yeah.
That's not a fucking quick fix.
Yeah.
It's a procedure. It's a tool that you're utilizing in order to start using an education process. We're not talking about fixing. We're talking about educating. This is why I struggle with these research papers, because my eyes in the field says something different to me when I'm watching dogs that I'm allowing to use as much reinforcement as they want to get the dog to do something as simple as recalling in a non-distracting environment, and they can't get it to do it. And I put a very non-invasive tool on to start with, and I start getting better progress. And as we start progressing through the necessities of different tools, not fixing, but educating the dog, then we start seeing, not teaching you to suck eggs or a lot of our listeners, but surprisingly, these dogs come around to it. And they don't come around to it in a negative fashion where you see the dog drooling in a puddle of fucking saliva because it's so stressed out of its legs and shaking and tucking its tail on the ground. The dog just simply understands, no one's ever really explained that to me. I've never had it shown to me that I'm not allowed to do that. That's why I presumed I was still allowed to display that type of behavior. Well, mate, how do we have any chance of breaking through? And what representation does this side of the community have where we've still got people out there making tiresome statements of these lazy trainers just reach for a quick fix all the time? Yeah, I know there's drongos out there who do shitty things. They do it in everything from breakdancing to dog training. There are those people. And unfortunately, they're people that always make the headlines because, as we know with social media, that excites people. That drives traffic up. The good people that I know who train dogs really well, they're really shunned from the media.
Yeah.
The limelight of the media does not fall on their lap. It falls onto the darlings who give it up, who sell their soul, or who are doing something so repugnant and revolting in training that they want to do it because they know that that's what's going to make tomorrow's headlines and disgust people and sell fucking papers or generate clickbait that people want to see to drive traffic to their site. That's the unfortunate side of this. Like, the reality is, while all this is going on, there are hundreds and thousands of dogs out there who are going to pay for it.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing this podcast for? 5 years? More?
Yeah, more.
So let's say
2017.
Yeah. During the time that we've said this, there's ebbs and flows of having this discussion. It comes up and it's going to come up and it should come up. It should be something that, like,
Well, I'm sick of this, but we've had this same podcast 100 times and I'm sick of it. But what do we do? Just get steamrolled and just buy the bullshit?
I'm sick of the people in it. That's what I'm sick of. I'm not sick of talking about it because I feel that there really needs to be a revolution in this. And I feel that if we're being revolutionary in this and holding a ground just because the popular narrative says we don't like it, it doesn't fit well on our fluffy narrative, seriously, it's too bad. I can't stomach the fact that I know that I can help a dog, that I can educate a dog, and I can give hope to the owner and also inspire the dog to actually understand what the clarity of the communication that we're trying to build around this. We can build an incredible relationship without promising fixes, without making outrageous claims and saying we will fix it or we'll take 2 years to do it. Like, that is fucking sinister. You can't demand that somebody takes on the project passion that you have. You love training dogs. I love training dogs. We've just been with a group of people who love training dogs. Most of the people in my life love training dogs. But that's a very fucking small pocket of people.
Yeah. The average client just wants to live cool with their dog.
They don't want the council to come around. They don't want a light shined on them. They just want to walk their dog when they get home from work, forget about what just happened in the office, just walk down the street, and they're horrified when their dog leaps out at another dog and there's a fight on the street and suddenly there's a council ranger in their property. And then to be told, sorry, mate, we're going to have to either take your dog off you or declare it dangerous. And by the way, you're not allowed to use any tools to train your dog.
Yeah.
Like, literally stripping you of all your power. It's basically saying, we want you to go to war, but you're not allowed to use any weapons. You've just got to use placards, and you should be taking posies and chocolates over there and trying to win the hearts and minds of your oppressors.
Yeah.
The people that are violent and doing, even though they're doing it, we don't subscribe to that narrative. That drives me crazy. And yes, there have been times where I think, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to be involved in it, but I'm having a flip. where I'm thinking, I don't want to talk about it. I want to feel like at least we can have some dialogue about it and people can come to us and talk about it without feeling like they're going to be cancelled and closed down, because that's what people feel like.
Yeah.
Is I'm scared to talk about this because the people who are preaching love and kindness in training are not loving and kind people. In fact, they're very violent in the way that they speak to me online. The words and the narratives and even the bullying and the gaslighting that goes on with these people is incredibly toxic. Sometimes I think they should read back what they actually say to people and how they speak to people and how oppressive they actually are in their approach to things. Some of it is, it's actually quite intimidating and scary when you look at what people are saying to not just trainers but dog owners. Yeah. And the reason why they're not exploring other methods for their dog and then they're choosing far more insidious methods to deal with their dog, such as euthanasia. There was a client the other day that euthanized his dog that I was dealing with. I spent a lot of time talking to him and I said, why did you do it? And he goes, mate, I'm literally just very intimidated with having to do what you're suggesting to do in my area. I just don't feel like I could do that. And he said, it just feels easier for me and my family to make this decision. I just said, well, I'm sorry, man. I understand. He said, I know it worked. I know what we did together worked. I know that everything that we went through and spoke about worked. And he goes, but my wife's worried about it. I'm worried about it. He goes, I just feel like it'll bring too much negative attention
wild
to me.
Hey. And I've had clients that are similar, where rather than be seen with a prong collar on their dog, they'd rather kill it.
Yeah.
Because like to humans that need to be part of the community and not the pariah. And like I've seen it plenty of times where people have been turned on in public for the way that the tools they have on their dog. Yeah, they need those tools for control of that dog. We're talking like prong collar. And then just go, well, I can't go through that again. I can't do that public shaming. I can't be berated in the park by someone and said that I'm abusive. Someone says that to me, we're going to have a chat, right? I'm not going to have that. But most people, they end up believing it because a lot of the average dog owner, when they get told to use a prong collar or an electric collar or whatever on their dogs, then the problem isn't being represented and they are just seen with the tool on by somebody who doesn't know that in the absence of that tool, the dog was dangerous or whatever it was. And so they berate them for having the tool on the dog in public and tell them that it's cruel and whatever. And if people don't know any better, like people believe the things people say to them, and especially they don't want to be in the out group in their community. So that is so wild to me, but you see it happen all the time that people go, okay, well, it's extreme case that they'll euthanize the dog instead, but they just won't use the tool or they won't take the dog out. And so then the dog's just stuck in the yard, turning food into shit rather than getting to actually do the things and enjoy its life the way that it could if the social situation didn't dictate that the owner felt bad about training the dog.
I'll tell you something else that I think is incredibly wild that's going on at the moment. There's certain groups now. I'll give you an example. If a positive trainer come up and spoke to me or any of my colleagues that I know and wanted to have a conversation with us, I wouldn't need to explain myself to my group and say, oh, I just spoke to a positive trainer. I'm not switching tracks or I'm not going to do anything remarkable in that area. I would just say, oh, I had a chat with a trainer and, like we had some opposing views and we went our different ways, and there were some certain things that we agreed on and laughed about and had a good time chatting about. Now I'm seeing it on the other side where trainers who are in the force-free community or the plus R community, if they dare have a conversation or a court talking to a balanced trainer, they have to explain to their party what's going on. It's like they need a permission slip to do it. They're incredibly frightened about what's actually going to occur to them just because they came over to have a conversation about dog training with a group of dog trainers.
It's wild, huh?
I thought the community was trying to remove that stigma of I'm a balanced trainer or I'm a plus R trainer.
Not at all.
It's never been removed. It was a ruse. Let's not end this on a bleak note.
Okay.
Let's be upbeat about this because one of the things that I really enjoy is having intellectual conversations with people who I consider are real dog trainers. Mm-hmm. They're not creating this farcical narrative. They're not trying to bully people and gaslight people. They're actually very curious about trying to change the world. Like those incredible scientists that I was talking about before, real people, real scientists, they're enthusiastic about peer-reviewed studies. And when I see trainers who are enthusiastic about peer review work as well, like they're interested in what other trainers are doing. They're interested about other trainers commenting on their work. This is my work. This is what I'm doing with my dog. What do you think? Give me feedback. Is there something I could do better? Do you think my dog has an aversion to the tools I'm using? Give me some advice. Let's build a community around those sort of things. I love that. I love that when I'm dealing with people who aren't run away with their emotions. Like they're saying, all right, you came to me for some advice. Here's some advice. It's just based on pure observation of what I've seen and my experience to the limitations of what I know about behavioral work with dogs and practical training. Here it is. You asked me on the line, here it is. I've given that to people before, and I've asked those questions of people before. I've said to them, what do you think? And I've valued their responses. I've valued their time, and it's been an incredible learning experience. That's what I want to encourage people to do. I think that's how we want to develop our community together. This is why we've lasted so long in the podcast. I just want to make sure that there is a legacy on this, and that the people that I've seen who are really genuinely suffering, who feel that they've got no one to go to, who fucking are scared. Like I've never seen people so scared before to speak out about things. That never happened in the early days of training. People come to you and say, I've got a problem with my dog. You give them a training technique. They'd say, incredible. All right, we're going to work with this. Like all clients, some people are genuinely going to follow through with it. They're going to stick with the program. They're going to follow through with the work. And there are going to be some people who they'll give it a go. Their wife will get involved or their husband will get involved and mix everything up. Then they'll spend all the time arguing, and then they'll literally put the dog back in the backyard and nothing will ever happen for the next time the dog does something indiscriminate, and then they need a professional to come back out again. And that happens plenty of times too. So everything in between. If you don't need to use tools with a dog, don't use the tools. Yeah. Just don't use them. Use what works. Follow a logical process with the dog where if you can do most of the work as we know and raise our own puppies, use as much positive first as you can along the process with the dog. And when the time arises that dog requires a tool, selectively and ethically use that tool until you don't need to use it anymore, and then go back to your positive training method.
Use them both at the same time.
Use them both at the same time. It's funny, for all the tools that I've used on my dog, he still loves me and he still looks forward to it. And even tonight when I went to get him out for training, the first thing he did was fucking harass me to put the tool on his head because he pre-macked it to the idea. Like, if I get this tool, I'm definitely going to training. But his choice, like he harasses the fuck out of me to get the tool on. Yeah.
All right, that's it for another episode of Canine Paradigm.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to do like a training type episode. So I think after this one's out, let's put a post up or something about like, hey, hit us with some training questions or something like that. So that we can do some like actual dog training stuff rather than just expressing our...
And getting back into some interviews.
Yeah, we need to facilitate that. That's a tricky thing. All right, so that's it for another episode of Canine Paradigm.
Yes.
As always, if you like what you hear, like, rate, share, subscribe. Do that through whatever subscription service you download us from, and then go to another one, do it there.
If you want to breakdance, let us know if you were a breakdancer and what your...
You've got to post a photo of you as a little
If I can find it, I will put it up for sure.
Yeah. And we should hold like a regional tournament. We should qualify ourselves for our own Olympics.
Dude, I would look ridiculous trying to break dance now. And I would injure myself for sure.
If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is Patreon. A few bucks a month gets you a giant backlog of information there as well as new stuff going forward. You can pay more and get access to live streams where you can ask me questions and I'll sit there and answer all your dog-related questions for as long as I can. If you also want to support the show, you can get some cool merch, socks, T-shirts, underpants, tapestries. Get all that. It's all spring. So get in the show notes. That's all there. You can click on the link. And if you want to get in touch with us, we got to join the Facebook discussion group. That's how you got to do. You got to get into that.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, so do that. And then if you want to get in touch with us directly, we are info@thecanineparadigm.com. Love you all. Goodbye.